Classes in session. Hey everybody, and welcome to Unlearn 16 Classes in Session. Today, Ryan Seeley. Listen,
I'm here.
You guys have been with us on our trip when the school got shut, on we were trying to keep it open, on when it was saved, and when it was saved for the second time. So now's the time to really dig into the soul of this one over here so you can see, let's say, my other half. This is my work half. You're like my work husband.
Yes, I have been called that.
For how long? How long have we been working together?
22 years. I think, right? 22?
22 years.
Yeah.
Do you feel old?
I look old. I don't feel old. There's a difference. It depends on the day. Like right now, this time of year is always energizing, right? So I think,
you feel energized right now?
Well,
I feel like I could lie down on that table.
Yeah, okay. Being tired though is, I think, different. Like it's a different type of tired. I'm mentally tired.
Yeah, absolutely.
Physically, I'm okay.
I had 2 naps on Sunday.
I put together a outdoor coach light.
I don't even understand what that means.
You know, like a coach light that you put. It's a solar coach light. No, like a lamppost that you would have.
Why would you do that?
Because I wanted a lamppost in the back of my garden.
Guys, I know that you've seen a lot of what goes on here at Metro. This isn't the best of lighting, but nonetheless, like a lot of what goes on in Metro. Let's be honest. I do a lot of the painting, and Ryan basically says, Joe, put this chair over there and get that light.
Well, I ask.
Okay. Well, everybody knows me. Nobody thinks you're telling me anything. The point of the matter is he's a lot more, let's say, what's the word I'm looking for? Decoratively inclined. It's your mom. Your mom made you that way.
Yeah.
She forced
I've been moving furniture and decorating since I was like grade 7. That's when it started. I like, Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Of course.
Obviously. That was the movie that got me into like decorating my room, because his room
wasn't it all computers and stuff?
No. His room was like, he had the big Union Jack on his door, a lot of records, and he had like a really cool chair. It was just a cool bedroom. And I thought, okay, I want my room like that. And then that just one thing led to another. But yeah, no, that's what my mom did for a living, right? She was a decorator. So when you grow up that way, I would come home from school, and before I would go to work at the grocery store.
We both worked at a grocery store.
Grimsby IGA Produce Department.
IGA in Whitby.
Didn't know that.
Swear to God, we
IGA,
did.
Independent Grocers
I worked at the deli.
Association. Deli's terrible. Sorry for you.
Produce
is the best.
This scar right here.
Yeah. I like eating at the deli, but working in the deli, no.
You know what's so funny? There's a very specific gender division of labor at IGA. Produce were guys. Deli
weird.
Girls. And bakery girls. Stock boys. Cashier girls.
Yeah. It was the best. One of the best jobs I ever had was the Grimsby IGA.
So funny.
I don't know if the Patrivas will see this, but if you're out there. Anyway, when I would come home, my mom would be sorry. My mom would say, "Oh, you have to work? Okay. Just before you go,
can you move this couch?"
Yeah, I just want to put that there, and we're just going to move this picture here, please, hon. Just before you go. And so, my spatial. No, like my spatial.
You didn't get Lego. You got settees.
Yeah, it was always like something rather more involved than what she said it would be. Because then but I started realizing, okay, it does make a difference how you place furniture, angles. And so I learned from an early age it's not, I don't want to call it a skill. It is a skill. No, I think it absolutely is a skill. With theater and stuff, it's really helped. And with the school, just knowing what will fit without having to measure things.
Yeah.
And
knowing what's going to look good and inviting and going to create some kind of ambiance. I think that's all very important. Lighting. It's all about lighting.
It really is.
We have.
Yeah, I don't love the lighting.
This is not good in here.
For this, it's fine.
How far back should we go? This is your first introduction. What do you think? So I want to wrap into Metro. I want to talk about everything we've gone through in sort of smaller detail, because these poor guys have been through everything with me, and then get to where we are and what our philosophies are and all that fun stuff.
Okay.
But how far back do you want to go? When I was 8. How far back?
No.
What do you? essential, if we're talking about
Not
you
when I
and
was
I and our sort of, let's say, educational and, I don't know, underpinning philosophical setting, where would you go back to for you?
Well, probably I would go back to like my late high school experience when I started a band with my buddies, and
Band
the
was called, and still is,
Full Fathom Four,
Full Fathom 4. You can go look them up.
Grimsby band, and then eventually a Niagara band. The camaraderie and the shared sort of push and pull in a band, I think you become like a family. So, but you argue and everyone tries to find their sort of spot of what they can contribute to the band, and then you have like band meetings and what's the album cover going to look like and how long should the song be and what do we start the show with. Then when I got into acting in university at Guelph,
so you never acted in high school?
I took drama, but I think I did a student written play, but no, I didn't do any of the musicals. I never liked it. I still don't.
You still won't do a musical?
It's the worst. No, I did once. I did not just once, but the play once.
Yeah.
But it's not really a musical. It's a play with music about a musician.
Yeah.
I think musicals are getting
I was hoping
way
for
better.
Rent.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I don't know. A good song in that, but the story, I don't know. We'll have to see.
So you're going in.
So theater, again, it's the collaborative nature. It's a very organized discipline. You build these like crazy relationships. So I met the best people in my third year, the best professors and acting teachers.
What school?
At Guelph, University of Guelph. So I had Judith Thompson, I had Harry Lane, I had Dr. Paul Mulholland, Alan Filewad, Rick Knowles, Catherine Marion, one of my best
Catherine,
acting.
yeah.
But these people in Canadian theater, like Judith Thompson is a legend.
Person, yes.
She really is. And but the family of the George F. Walker plays that we were working on, then we started our own theater company as soon as we graduated. But that, like, the reason I'm going into this is doing plays back then, I was still getting clothes out of my closet to clothe other actors. We were still using my mom's furniture. You were always
that guy.
Yeah, because you have to do the show.
But you just are that guy.
I'm that
not
guy.
Everybody would have been that guy. You still have to do the show, but you still were the guy. You were directing before you knew you were directing.
Yeah, and I wasn't really direct. I never even took a class in directing. I only was interested in acting. But what I realized is as I went down the path of theater and film and trying to become an actor, is I missed the band. But then when you go back to the band, you miss the autonomy of being an actor, where you're like, I want to do this, and I'm going to, if I get offered this project. Yeah,
you can switch teams and you can transition into other projects.
Yeah, so I think the cool thing about Metro is that when I first got hired here, I had already gone to England and California,
LA,
yeah, studying with people, learning from the best teachers. But I still missed the camaraderie. And so when I got hired here,
you didn't think it was going to be long. You thought I was going to do this for a minute,
6 months, a year,
be done with it,
then I'll
get
go back
some
to
money,
acting.
go back to acting.
Mm-hmm. And I think the students were so interesting to me, right? And what I was able to accomplish with them changed my whole trajectory.
Yeah.
And so the best thing about this school was the students and the staff were given a lot of freedom to try whatever it is they want.
Yeah.
Take a class. Oh, you don't have the prerequisite? Well, oh well.
Yeah. Give it a go.
If you really
anyway.
want to try
you can give
the
it a
acting
go.
class and you don't have drama 9, go for it. So meeting people like John Hirsch,
right.
Who was a former student, who was a magician, like a literal magician.
Lighting, yeah.
And then a lighting guy in grade 9 and 10 begging me, can we do a play? Can we do a play? From that moment on, it's literally every year is what's the show. Yeah. And then all the other stuff fell into place, English and world issues and philosophy and even civics, all of those things that I've taught over the years have always music. They've always come second to theater. And so the school slowly became like a canvas upon which all the teachers that got along with me and I guess, the things that I wanted to try to achieve at the school, especially the travel. I mean, that's huge, right?
Well,
The New
for
York
me,
trips.
it was all a mistake.
Yeah.
Like for me, it was all a mistake. It was all
Still
this
is.
very.
It still is.
It was all a mistake in the sense that I had one day a grade 9 drama. Somebody asked me to act like a willow tree. I said, piss off.
Yeah.
I left. I then played volleyball and baseball and rugby, and I went off to do all these other things. Never in a million years did I think that there would be something that resonated with me when it came to theater or acting or performance or any of it. Never did I think. And the interesting part is, as a teacher, funnily enough, I think if you're good, you're a performer.
Oh yeah.
No matter what you teach, because if you're not good at it and you don't figure out how to control the room, you don't figure out how to tell a story, you don't figure out how to draw kids in, I don't think you can make a great teacher. I don't care how smart you are in your discipline. I think the great teacher comes from that. And I used to, like when we were younger, I'd be like, oh, sure, take drama. It's an easy course, right? Like, come on. It's exactly what take all the hard courses or something out. And the older I got and the smarter I became, the more I recognized that, oh, no, take drama. Because, and as we get to our ethos of Metro Prep and what we're going to do and what we have been doing here, I honestly believe that the performance and the art gets closest to the authenticity of the person if you do it right, and that should be at the heart of everything. Period.
That's well put.
Right?
Well, I mean, that is okay. So a lot of what I've taught in acting classes is based on Stanislavski's method.
Bless you.
Which is a good one. Which is essentially you're trying to figure out what story in your own life can apply to the character that you're playing. So you bring something true from your own experience and you somehow layer it or link it to the story of the character. So let's say you're hired to play, a killer, but you've never killed anyone. Well, you have to dissect and, I guess, deconstruct why, what was the motivation of the
And
kill,
what would it take
and
for
what
you to get there?
happened,
Yeah.
and is there guilt after you've done it? Okay, so let's just talk about guilt. Obviously, this character, let's say it's Hamlet, and you have a revenge complex that you want to carry out because your father's been murdered by your uncle, who's also with your mother now, and there's this whole sort of insidious plot, and you want revenge. Okay, has there ever been a time in your life where you wanted revenge? It doesn't have to have anything to do with your father or mother or uncle, but have you ever wanted revenge?
And I remember you telling me that,
right?
And then, trying to get me to do that.
But some people, their life experience is very on the surface. They think, well, I've never really had anything happen to me. And students will say that, like, I'll say, well, tell a story. You're going to tell us a true story, something that happened to you that changed you. And a lot of them start off with, well, nothing's really happened to me. But that's not true. Something's happened to everyone.
Yeah.
And it's the digging. That's the part of the process, right?
And do you think it's so funny? So I'm just trying to see parallels here between, because it is our friendship and our closeness and what we've done here and what we're about to do here is very unexpected if you looked from the outwards in. But the more that you talk about that process, the more that you realize acting is about being more of an authentic person, more of who you really are, because you have to do all that digging that people avoid. People avoid that digging by drinking, by drugs, by marrying the wrong person, by going on trips, by building it. They avoid it, right? Whereas acting, if you do it right, if you do it at all, it's kind of tapping on your shoulder and saying, no.
Well,
you got to go back to that crappy place that you don't even want to talk about.
You still go to those places even when you're acting.
Right? Well, no, but that's what I'm saying is that it's the acting. It's weird. I always thought acting was pretending. I still, to some degree, do because I'm not good at it. But it's also about finding a truth.
Well, yeah. Well, I don't want to turn this into like an acting lecture. I guess
But I think that's the heart of what we're about to do.
Well, okay, to your point of that a great teacher is often performing. I think that's true in most cases. I do think there's phenomenal teachers that figure a way eventually to even be more authentic and perform less because they're so centered in what they're doing that they don't need the pomp and circumstance.
Sure.
Right?
When I say performing, I don't mean maybe the way that I teach. But that's how I enjoy. That is who I am.
It. Yeah.
But I mean performing in the sense of capturing attention and being authentic and knowing your audience.
Mm-hmm. Knowing your audience is very important, and that again, you learn that over time. And Metro's been a wonderful place. People ask me, and still do, why did you stay teaching?
Yeah.
Why didn't you go back into directing? Even people who we've worked with for years will say, like, I always thought maybe you'd do this or that. And it's not that I don't think about those things, right? I will probably write a play or more than one play at some point in my life. I'm just going to have to, right? Yeah, okay. There's things I want to do, but the most fun I've ever had is working with teenagers in theater and in music.
Why?
Well, there's two reasons. I think one is when you're an actor, all you really do is audition for things. And you have a group of people auditioning you quite often who don't really even know what they want. They want you to come in the room and tell them, I am the person, so that you make their job easier. But how it comes off is they're judging you. But really, they want you to succeed because the faster they find
it's easier
someone
for them.
Yeah.
Just come in and blow me away.
But that idea of someone else kind of judging you and saying you're not right for this, it gets very tiring.
Yeah, sure.
And so it's part of the process. Brian Cranston talks a lot about it's the job. It doesn't matter if you get the part or not. Right then in that moment is your job to do your very best audition, your very best work to show them what you can bring to the table. But after you've done a lot of auditions and you get a commercial or you get a little play or an indie film, and I've done all of those things, you spend a lot of time not acting. You spend a lot of time doing all the jobs that actors do, right? Waitering, bartending, so that they have flexibility to go to those things. When I started teaching, I realized that from 8:45 in the morning, when we used to start 8:45, and when I first started, I had 5 classes. From 8:45 to 3:30 every day, and we only had a 35-minute lunch, and I had 25 to 30 people in those.
Skinny.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what I was doing more theater in 1 week. I was on stage, working my voice, trying to be funny, directing, learning about lighting. I was doing way more of that. And by the end of the year, I was like, wow, I've spent a lot of time. So that really intrigued me to not give up on that, because it could have been a couple of years of teaching and then you go back and do a theater company or go work at Soul Pepper, and I have lots of my friends who have gone on and done those things. I still know that if I compare the amount of time I've spent in a black box theater since 2001 to now, there's few people that I know that have spent
done that much.
Well, it's not that I've done so much. It's just been in that environment.
Yeah.
That to me is what I love about it. And number two, our school is small, and I do my shows in small spaces, and we work on them for months and months and months, and we do our very best. And then it happens and it goes into the ether and it's done. It's over, and then you move on. It's not some big spectacle where there's reviews and there's, the previews and everyone's talking about it. It's like we just did Frankenstein. It's the hardest show I've ever done. It's over. It happened. And I've learned to love that.
Yeah.
That there's this release.
Meanwhile, I'm always trying to think ways to capture it and put it on film, and you can't do it. And I've tried.
No, it's just you can.
Like it doesn't.
It's a whole other job.
It doesn't. It never looks.
Nope.
Like I want.
You have to be in the room.
You have to be in the room, which is. To be honest, that should be our school model. You have to be in the room. But being in the room and being in real time and experiencing something authentically is something I think that we've lost a lot of. Now we've lost a lot of it because of technology and because of what we can do and what we can access. And there's good things that come with that.
Mm-hmm.
But being in the room and putting all that away and just existing in that moment and not taking the selfie and not doing this. I mean, hilariously enough, coming from me who TikToks everything. But there is something authentically powerful about that. And I don't know many places it exists anymore. And I think that is the heart of education, being authentically in the room.
Yeah, I do, especially in the arts, especially because there's an atmosphere. I think the school has an atmosphere that our colleagues and our students have helped us create. And obviously the support that Wayne and Deb have given us over the years to just try stuff,
To just do
I'm
it,
looking
yeah.
at your classroom that you're in charge of this. And it's changed so many ways, right? And it will continue to change. I'm looking around now. I'm like, oh, that'll probably be different next year. And that's the beauty of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think you mentioned something I'd like to talk about, which is this whole idea of authenticity, TikTok, and your sort of social media career, like the fact that I'm on your podcast.
And by the way, I just said, Ryan, we have an hour before we have to go to a parents' meeting. We're going to do a podcast. He goes, what do you mean? I said, just come in my room, sit down. He goes, I'm going to go change my shirt.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It.
Well, no, but what I think when I saw you first doing, because I still don't have TikTok. I only
rude.
No, I don't.
Just get it and follow me at least.
Well, but see, I already know you and I'm with you. And I think what's really interesting is when you started doing the lip syncing.
It was just
right after a divorce. I just thought it was so funny how you went from, I never want to be in a play, I'm terrified.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're like, you got like a leather jacket on and you're holding a guitar. I'm like, you don't play guitar.
Okay, but it was totally in my control.
Yep. But you were good at it and people got into it. But at first I was like,
what the hell's wrong with her?
Yeah.
She's having a break.
No, I didn't think you were having a break. I just thought this seems like a side of you that number one, it didn't seem. It was a side of you I didn't know existed. And I liked it, but I was very protective of you. I thought, and you don't know this.
No.
Yeah, like there were people.
Because you tried to get me into a play before that, way before that.
But there were just people that were like, I think they were like, what's Joe doing? 100%. Right? And I was so protective. My best friends. Yes, I like former students, right? Even like, well, can we say students' names?
Sure.
It was like Haikun.
Right.
Like he called me. He's like, "Have you seen like Joanna's doing like a?"
By the way, Haikun, you could have just called me directly, sir.
I'm not outing it.
No,
I'm just saying,
of course. I had some of my best friends who are like, "What is going on?
Yeah.
Are you okay?"
Yeah, and it was in fact it was a number of the kids at this table that we took the picture of.
Those
like Abdu, that
Christian,
Abdu. But as you got more comfortable with the whole thing, when you started doing was the complete opposite of just a lip sync, and it went into
it was by
not
accident.
just podcasting, but then the in your car talking about education. Then I was like, this is interesting because now it's the Joe that I've seen in a staff room or on a trip, but you still have a performative nature when you are doing. It's not that it's not authentic.
No, 100%. I know
you mean everything you're saying, but when you describe going through a drive-through, you would think that it was like you saw Godzilla was coming over the mountain. Or
listen, I do it a lot.
You'll describe like, guys, look at this. I just found this vintage cereal box at Costco. No one told me.
It's highly enjoyable.
But what I'm saying is, it is that intensity. But you're more like when you're explaining to a student why they have to write an essay this way, you'll get that way. When you're trying to tell a teacher, how funny something was with a kid that happened at lunch, you get that way.
Right.
But most of our friendship, you're rarely like that, because we have like a much more kind of calm, like, let's figure this out. We're usually in some sort of crisis.
We're usually in crisis.
We're usually figuring out a problem or coming up with like a cool idea. And then you're like, I want it to be like this, and I can see it. And you're very passionate, but you're not selling me.
Yeah.
And
Never.
so I think this whole podcast, TikTok fame that because it is like when I go out with Joe, like last fall we went to the Blue Jay game. I couldn't go 10 feet without someone coming up to her
at the Blue Jay Stadium.
And I love your podcast. Oh my God. And I just stand there, right? Because what am I going to say? I don't have TikTok. I know what she's going to say before she says it half the time. That I can feel it. But I was so, and still am, when we went to the play, the Jaws play.
Oh yeah.
As soon as we got there, people wanting, and I'm like, this is so cool. Because, it just is. It's for the right reasons. And I don't really think you've ever made it about you. In a sense, I just don't. I think you've always made it about the topic, the person, the student, whatever it is you were, the parents.
Sure.
Right. And unless I'm wrong, you have all these followers and you are not a millionaire, right?
Oh God.
You know what I'm saying? You're not doing it for that.
No.
That impresses me because most people who call themselves, and you are an influencer, 100% you influence people. But a lot of influencers I know, they have all of these deals and they have these, and you're so much you're like, let's do a podcast. Well, this matters to you.
100%.
But who's going to give you money for it? No one. It's just going to be good for parents. It's going to be good
actually cost me money. I'm pretty sure. Well, it does. I subscribe.
It's very,
to
very
the podcast.
admirable.
I don't think it's so funny because a lot of people will say that, like I do a lot of lives or I'll do this and I talk, but it's not as I guess altruistic as you'd think, because I feel like I get so much from it. So when I do lives, the conversations I get, the banter I get, the community I get, and I am, I'm an extrovert. I think it feeds something that I really love and something that I get to be passionate about in this room. I get to magnify, and I joke all the time. I would never want to use anything that I've garnered to necessarily make money on TikTok or from followers, because there's lots of ways you can you need subscriptions or you need to do this or that or whatever. But what I've told everybody, I want to be the anti Jordan Peterson. That would be my goal. My goal would be being able to sit on a stage.
Why? Okay, let's get into that. Why anti? You mean anti-Jordan Peterson in the sense that...
I mean, I don't believe anything, but he has a certain magnetism and pull and cultural influence that I want to have. But what I really like about it is I like the idea of the professor lecturer that is now connecting on a cultural, political, social level that's getting people inspired for change. Now, when I say anti him, I believe that most of his stuff I want to do the opposite of. A lot of his primary beliefs.
You don't agree with a lot of his politics.
Right. I mean, make your bet all you want. But outside of that, I think we'd come head to head. I think of a guy like Stephen Fry. I saw him do a podcast and I'm just blown away by how smart he is.
The actor?
Oh my God.
The British actor.
Yeah.
Oh, he's amazing.
Beyond. He was on a thing with Jordan Peterson and he very quietly, very witty, very witty, like British people are, just kept putting him in his place and saying, like, Jordan, you know what you're talking about? Here you go. And then I'm thinking, to me, that's what the world needs. The world needs calm, witty, intelligent people to address big issues in rooms and authentic. You got to be in the room. Because I love podcasts and I like where you can
agree.
reach.
I
There's
think
something more powerful.
Well, the thing I like about your approach is you like to have meaningful discussions with your students and your friends and your colleagues. But you also, it's about the disagreements as much, right? What I've learned, because I'm not an expert in like you are in any of this stuff, but I have watched quite a lot of Jordan Peterson in clips because he's become famous. And one of the things that I notice about him, and I think you would agree, is that he likes to back up a lot of his statements with studies and statistics. And he's the one thing I'll say, I mean, I don't know the man. I've never gone to one of his lectures, but he does have a way of presenting his opinion with some other things. The question is, do I then go and vet his statistics?
Well,
no, of course I don't. But would he would he put himself in? Would you? I don't think you would. I don't think you would go on alive and start spouting off statistics if you didn't know you could back them up.
Absolutely not.
So some of the things that I think are important in education are that I think we do need to have discussions about what's happening with Israel and Palestine in a classroom.
Yes.
You don't avoid
the amount of
them.
time.
You don't avoid
how many
them.
times? I'd say
But
for the past 6 weeks, I have one every day.
Yeah. Okay. Well, what I mean is the one thing, and the Jordan Peterson kind of model one thing I like, it doesn't matter if you agree with him, because I know what you mean. I don't agree with
No, but
things.
but he should be a part of the discussion.
Yeah, and if we could have more educators,
yes,
have the stats, the map, the border, the date to show kids how things have come to pass, whether it's from history or whether it's a social justice issue, I think it would resonate with kids even more than just everyone sharing an opinion
clickbait
and going,
and
you know
anger
what I mean?
and
Yeah, it's just oh, my mom hates this person, so I hate this person.
Yeah.
My dad can't stand Netanyahu, but my mom loves him, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's all anecdotal. But let's look at, how long has Netanyahu been in power? How many people voted for him? What are the polls showing now? What's going to happen to him if he does lose the election?
Yeah.
Trump, another divisive figure, right? Everyone, Trump's an idiot. Okay.
But how does 70 million people vote for him? That's the interesting conversation.
Yeah. And how does he keep avoiding, even when he's convicted,
he
just appeals,
yes.
right? And if he wins the next election. So what I love about Metro Prep is that if we want, we can spend that time talking to the students and showing them the clips. We have to teach curriculum, but the curriculum, when you read any ministry curriculum, there's there's a lot of creativity.
Yeah.
Instead of looking at it negatively, I've learned to look at it positive, like in a positive light. There's a lot of much room to teach a course that has been approved by the ministry in a different way. And we certainly have done that here. And that's what we're going to continue to do, is deliver the material in an engaging way, but it has to be modern. It has to be thoughtful. We don't want to forget where we've come from, but I think that is for me, that's the future. You want to talk about like the philosophical underpinnings. It's sure there's the Dead Poet Society model where you want that amazing teacher who connects with the kids, shows them a different side of who they are. I love that. That was one of the first times I ever thought I want to teach was when I saw that movie. Yeah. Right. But that happens to me a lot. Like I get really invested in certain stories and go, I want to do that. Right. I want to work for National Geographic because I saw Raiders of the Lost Ark and I thought,
who doesn't want that hat?
I have the hat.
It's true.
So moving forward, what do you said, like, what do these people that are listening to this want to know about the future of the school and the saving of the school? And I mean, well, first of all, your listeners need to know that we wouldn't even be having this podcast if things haven't transpired the way they did, because you and I would be in a very different headspace. We might not be even working together. We probably would have been and figured it out, but it would have been much different, and we wouldn't be talking about the future of Metro.
Yeah.
Which is just kind of, it's the story itself is insane, and it's too long and detailed to go into. But in general, I think the school is going into the future because it has to. It just has to. The universe is, I'm not even
You've said this before.
It's just
this is not the end of this. This is not how the story ends.
I've been telling you this
since we moved here. This is not how the story ends.
No, to me, story's everything. And when you read so many plays and you watch all these movies, if you're someone like myself who like really believes that the best stories, the best plays, they're all true. And they really happened for the most part. They always do. They're always something based in actual reality. Sorry to the Harry Potter fans, right? But even Harry Potter has like its elements of truth in it, right? Or Buffy, yeah. But this story is so important. I just knew that the characters, like I guess I was starting to say when you read plays, and everyone that I know or student, whether it's a teacher, a student, even my family members, I'll see them in a movie. I'll see them in a show, like a character, and go. And so when you meet someone and you start to work with them or teach them, sometimes you're like, they remind me of Tony Soprano in a way, or they remind me of Luke Skywalker, or whatever character you pick. There are too many characters in the history of Metro, Wayne being the major protagonist, that the story just doesn't end that way. The other thing is that I think the voice of Metro Prep in the private school world of Toronto, and we're just going to say Toronto, is necessary. It's just a very different voice. There are schools that have borrowed things from Wayne's philosophy, and there are schools that even we learn from, and that's an interesting thing they're doing over there, and we might implement that in a variety of ways. But we're not a competitive school.
No.
We don't get up in the morning and think, how can we be better than that school? Now, maybe to our detriment in certain regards, but it's just not who you and I are. It's always about the kids in the room and the teachers and what are we doing? And so even going through this whole transition, the entire time after Wayne got sick and passed away, we've still also had to help the school continue to function on a daily, every test, every event, the play, the trips, supporting the teachers supporting us, yearbook, every club, the Ireland trip, exams.
Can't believe we're going to Ireland.
Right? All of this stuff has to happen. And so why are we doing it? Because it's hard. Well, it's because you have to. At this point, that's my answer, is that it's no longer just a simple choice of, well, do I want to work here anymore? That wasn't really the option. So as soon as we found out that the school was closing,
it's like, no, it's not.
No, like in my gut, I knew it wasn't.
Yeah. But we had no idea how it wasn't.
No.
That was the best part of that moment. I wish I could package that moment where we looked at each other and went, it's not closing, but literally had no idea.
Well, I just don't think you can never. And it's not like we've done anything magical.
We've been lucky.
There's been a lot of good fortune and people who have given us good advice, and especially parents too, even. Right.
Look, and I've said this before, and I'll say this now. I wouldn't wish what we went through on anybody and what we're going through, but the fact we've all been tested by fire has sort of forged a community of parents and teachers and students that I don't think, you can't fake that. You got to go through hell and back together in order to get that. And even though it was relatively short, do you know what I mean? All those parents in that cafeteria saying, what 10 are you teaching in? We'll be there, was insane. It's still insane.
It's not, though, because I know what you mean. Insane. It's not, though, because once your student, your kid, connects with the school and believes in the school, the last thing a parent wants to do is take their kid out of that, because you have the social and the academic, right? And on any given day, those things can inverse of what's more important. So I started thinking about that, like, this is weird, because most people think, okay, well, if the school's closing, what happens to my financial situation? Where can I work? Am I going to enjoy it as much? How do I start doing that and looking for another career while I'm doing this? And I can't do any of those things. But the first thing I thought about was, I didn't like the idea, and this is so stupid, but it will make sense to you. I didn't like the idea of going to Ireland on a school trip that I've been thinking about for years.
And coming back
and getting off at Pearson on July the 1st and shaking hands with kids and saying, best of luck at your new school.
It wasn't just that you didn't like the idea. You're like, that's not how it ends. Well, that's ridiculous.
It just can't happen. It's a weird story.
And here's because all of the things you listed, all those things I should have been thinking about, right? How do I get a job? Where do I go from here? What am I going to have my mom? And all of those things that I should have been thinking about, I probably thought about those things 10%. And the other 90 wasn't just that this isn't how it ends. It's just like, this is who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And not just a teacher. I'm a teacher here. I'm a teacher here because of what we've been able to create. And I know for a fact there's lots of places I can go and work. But I don't think there's a place that I can be this. And
even if
and
there
I've grown
is, though,
into this.
even if there is, right?
I just don't want to.
Okay, but then someone has to replace you here,
Mm.
right? And then that, like, we've had lots of teachers over the years at Metro, wonderful teachers, and some of them have left and gone on to do other great things or teach at other schools. And that's going to happen again. Not everyone stays, right?
For sure.
But what's cool about Metro is the ethos of it. The ethos, the philosophy, it hasn't changed that much. Here's the courses we offer.
Mm-hmm.
Put someone in the room that cares about the students. Teach the student, not the course.
All right.
Don't get afraid if you're called to the principal's office because they just want to talk to you about your life.
Right.
You can have policies, but everything has to be treated on a case-by-case basis, even though there's a policy, because policy is worded in such a way, like discipline policy, where you sometimes cut out the entire, like, you're not treating the problem.
Context of the situation, yeah.
Right? So a kid said something inappropriate to another student. All right, well, then you find out what's going on in that kid's life. Mm-hmm. Sometimes the parent of the kid who's offended doesn't even want anything to happen to the student that's broken the rule, because now they know what's going on at home, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But, and I'm sure lots of schools are able to navigate those things. But I think moving forward, that's something I don't really want to change much.
No,
right?
Absolutely not. I think the only thing that it's so funny is that Wayne has always been exactly the person you described him. And so he created this kind of this ethos that we grew up in, and I think is very, very important. I think the only difference is that you and I are very comfortable with who we are in the sense of what the underpinnings of humanities and the arts and how we feel as though that is the foundation. If you want to be a scientist, if you want to be a doctor, if you want to be a math, amazing. But I'll tell you, you're going to go into those fields having the heart and having the soul of somebody who is still connected to the arts in some capacity. Because if you go void of that, it will be empty. And I truly believe that. And the longer that I've been, I used to not believe that. I don't think I was ever attached to that notion. I think watching, we had a kid, basketball playing, superstar, 99 in everything, quiet, reserved, never like gonna go out and do amazing things. Absolutely. This year, the kid goes into the play, assistant directs, and becomes a different person. And I don't think he became a different person. I think finally the piece of him that he didn't know he could access and he didn't know was important, all of a sudden was just poked a little bit and boom. And I think every person has that.
I think that's a good way to, as we get closer to the end of the conversation, it's what I talked about at the beginning, which was the collaboration. There isn't really, in my experience, and this is kind of a David Mamet quote, and David Mamet's a famous American playwright. He's problematic, but he wrote some great plays. And he wrote a book called True and False. And it was an acting book for an actor, Common Sense or something like that for the actor. And the first thing you do when you open it up is you read his sort of, I guess, opus, or his thesis on why you shouldn't go to acting school. If you want to be an actor, just go and act.
Right.
And I remember reading this book, and I taught it for years as kind of like, let's look at what we've learned in Stanislavski and the method, and let's talk about all the stuff, that David Mamet is saying is nonsense. Like he says, there's no such thing as character. There are lines on a page. That's it. Hamlet doesn't exist before his first line, and he doesn't exist after. He believes that acting schools are almost like cults. He talks about how if you have a backup plan, you will inevitably fall back on that backup plan. So getting your degree and then, right? Just if you want to be an actor, go and act. Now, easy for him to say in the sense that he did it. He wrote plays. He became very wealthy and famous and then went into film. And he's an American icon. So then he writes this book that basically actors, they were offended by it, and acting schools were offended by it. I taught it for that reason, to see if some of what we were doing was actually hypocritical. But I bring this up because one of the lines in that book is, he says, I've never seen a more perfect community of human beings than in the theater. That's what he said. He said, working with people in the theater is for him the most perfect community of people. The actors, the designers, from everyone, the technicians, the writers, the publicity. When you are working in that environment, something happens. And everything else that's going on in the world
doesn't matter.
Well, it matters, but it doesn't take you away from your task. And I think what happened with the student you're talking about is simply he started using a different part of his brain. That community started wearing off on him. He helped create that. And then it just happened. And so now he'll never be the same.
Yes.
What's going to be problematic for him is if he doesn't follow a little bit of this now and get involved, right? Sure. And sign up for the indie film that they're shooting at the university, or saying, yeah, I'll work on this play. And listen, theater's not for everyone. And some people hate it. And quite often, even people who are in theater don't like watching theater. You get kind of, but to me, it's all theater. And it's the oldest saying. Right?
Go ahead, say it.
No, I don't need to, because everyone knows it.
All the world's staying. Well, but that's it. I think it's important. But again, going back to, and it's taken me 22 years to come to it, in a play that scared the crap out of me, to understand it. Because I don't think that for the most of us, I don't think for a lot of us, do we tap into that unless you're burdened by the draw of it, or you're naturally inclined to it. And I think it's a part of everybody. And if it's a part of everybody and we don't acknowledge it, or we don't fan that flame a little bit, I think there's a little bit of all of us and that artistic side that is missing. And that's why I think it should be fundamentally the heart. And it is fundamentally the heart of all societies. The arts is fundamentally the heart, the soul of all societies, and everything else that comes from there. And the more that we've taken money away from the arts and said, you just need to be good at math, or you need to code this computer, or you need to do this because it's all about money, 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 that vapidity of soul is the wearing thing. It's not to say don't learn how to code and don't become a doctor. It's to say that humanity still needs that soul. And that soul, I think, is best connected and, within that realm.
Well, you don't have to preach to me.
I thought Ryan was speechless there for a second.
No, I agree. I agree. I think, the music side of things too, that is
there's a whole other aspect of that.
Yeah, it's like every year, art, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, of course, everything. The Smith is all about integrating those things. What I'd like to see is what we do at Metro in the future. Is I'd like to see how pedagogically we can integrate music, video, film, visual art, fashion, acting, playwriting into other disciplines.
Yes.
So that, see, you can take a course in physics, but there's a music unit. Absolutely. Where the physics of sound are in that, and vice versa. How, if you're talking about Bob Dylan, is there a way, of course you can analyze lyrics, that's easy, and that could be taught in an English room, but what what is it about Bob Dylan that makes him so unique is not just the sound of his voice. It's the rhythm in which he plays.
There's a frequency and a rhythm that people are drawn to.
And when you try, and I've listened to him for years and learned a lot of his songs, if you actually try to sing when he sings and come in when he comes in and play what he's playing, for me, it's virtually impossible. It goes against the grain of like timing. I'm not saying that's math, but there's something there.
Oh, there's an element though. Absolutely.
That fascinates me, that if someone were like, well, the reason he's so interesting is because if he was an algorithm or if he was a program, it's completely goes
and against. So people are drawn to that as much as they're drawn to the same 4-bar pop song. They're also drawn to him because he's the opposite.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I can talk a lot about Bob Dylan, but I think it's not just the arts that can be in the sciences and the businesses.
Both. You're right.
Right?
100%.
Like, it's very valuable for kids to find out how actors and designers and directors get paid. Mm-hmm. And they don't understand it. And when you talk to them about the money aspect, and do you know that you make more money if you're in this type of a theater? Mm-hmm. Or, there's the IATSE union. And if you're not in the union, you can't work on certain types of shows. And the reason kids will say, well, why don't we ever do shows in big theaters? Well, one of the reasons is that when you go into most theaters in Toronto, if they're working with the union, you can't just have a student go up and run the lighting board. Yeah. You can't even sweep the floor.
It's true.
I've been yelled at for doing these things. Yeah. Everyone has a job. Mm-hmm. If you're doing their job. Right.
But what a cool lesson though, too. Well, it's a whole lesson in labor relations. Yeah. It's a whole lesson in economic process.
And I'm sure most kids would rather just do improv or run around and put costumes on. But to end it all with, I think with your comment about, drama, you took it, pretend to be a tree. Look.
That was the first day.
There's
awful.
There's a reason that acting teachers get students to pretend those things.
I'm sure.
Until, though, you read a great script. It's only the most creative, most artsy kids that are going to love swaying in no breeze in a black room, pretending to be a tree. But when you realize that a lot of that is, how comfortable am I acting 100%. Like a tree in front of all of my friends, and I'm not doing it right.
Driven by insecurity, 100%.
Yeah, right? And then it's that. It's all of those games. Like, I hate those games too, where it's like I'm throwing you a ball, you catch it, and with a sound, and pass it to that person, and then they go, ooh, right? I don't do a lot of that because, to me, it always felt inauthentic. And it's like when people are like, everyone, let's get ready to rock. Who was with me? And everyone has to chant. And you and I are like, I'm not doing that part. Like that raw. Yeah. So, but if you don't do any of that and all you do is read scripts, you'd be surprised. I can tell you that I've seen it where I get too cerebral with my directing and with my acting teaching, where I make everything about the rhythm of the line, the word, how something sounds. And then I'm watching my students going, they're still not comfortable in their body. They're shuffling. They're not grounded. They don't know what to do with their feet.
You told me to be grounded 450 times. I still haven't learned it in that play. But
I think,
but there's a sense of insecurity. Mm-hmm. 100% that drives. So when I first started doing those ridiculous lip syncing TikToks, in my opinion, I was just letting go of the tree in me. Honest to God. And I didn't really think anybody was watching for the longest time, because I'm like, well, I'm just, except for the people passing me on downtown Oshawa when I was doing that video that you're talking about. So there was this separation from audience. Mm-hmm. So I could just act like a tree, metaphorically, see what it felt like. And I actually enjoyed it, because I think in some way everybody wants to be a rock star, and see what it felt like. And then I got all this lovely comments back for the most part. Nobody criticized me until I talked about Doug Ford. And you get all of these comments back. And then but that's it, right? It's figuring out, how do I let go of insecurity, or how do I overcome insecurity, or how do I just exist in it and live with it? Suck at something. I think that's amazing.
I think that's more
so powerful.
to overcome it,
exist with it then, right? Because we're all going to have it. We all want to do well.
I don't think it's, I just don't think it's necessarily helpful. I'm going to just say it, and people can disagree with me, but we've talked a little bit about this, and that is this idea of like when people are accountable for their own issues, and now it's almost like, well, I'm sorry, I'm a late person. I'm always late. I'm sorry. It's just who I am.
Right. You're never supposed to change.
It's like people now that just say, well, oh, that's me. That's on me.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, that's on me. I'm terrible with this. Like, I'm a terrible texter. I'm sorry I didn't respond. I'm terrible with that.
And we're all supposed to accept it.
Yeah, just admitting that you suck at something doesn't mean that everyone is supposed to just, right? And I have all my issues too, many. But I am so... people now are like, you don't care about what people think of you. Wrong. I hate that idea.
Oh, yeah. I hate that idea too.
If you don't care what other human beings think of you, then you're a narcissist. Okay? You should. Now, do you want the good opinion of bad people? No.
Yes.
You want the good opinion of good people.
Yes, of course.
But to walk around going, I don't care what people think of me, is the most selfish, self-absorbed way of living. Right. I think you should care. It doesn't mean you should change who you are because someone's telling you I don't like your opinion.
Unless you're a dick.
No, but
well, it's true.
But what I'm saying is, you would only know you're a dick if somebody
told you. Exactly.
Right? Okay. And why would you change? Because you cared what they think. Mm-hmm. Okay. That's just what I'm saying. So how does this relate to, sort of summing up? I think that matters to me. Mm-hmm. Like going forward with school and trying to lead young people, is that you do need to care about everyone, not just you, and not just the people you agree with. You need to care. And I think you do that very well. So moving forward, that will be something that I think you and I and the rest of the faculty will be spreading amongst our students. And that is a Wayne thing too, because Wayne did care about 100%. What people would say about other students, and he would talk to them about it. Like, I heard someone said this. Is that true? What did you do on the weekend? Why did you do that? Is it because you're in love with that? Why don't you just tell them? And then he'd get on the phone and call the student down. Friend of Sally, please come to my office. And then here comes John, and then there's Sally, and Sally's like, I can't believe you just called John down to my office. And John, do you know Sally? Yes, Wayne. But it's like, well, people are saying things and they're not true, or they are true. Let's figure it out.
Let's put it on the table.
That's also just because Wayne did love to be a matchmaker, but he did care what people thought of the school very much. I mean, how many times did you hear him say, "Guy, we can't have that." Yeah. The parents will think this, even though it's wrong. They'll think that. The students will. What will the students say? Right. And I think there's a lot of people out there who are in administration, maybe in private schools or the public system, that would say, well, that's no way to run a school. You cannot worry about what parents think. You have to. Well, hello. Yeah, that's why people pay to go to private school, because there's people out there saying you can't worry about what parents think.
Well, and if I'm not, and again, it's good opinions of good people. And the ridiculous thought that there aren't good parents out there who think great things, and we should be listening to them, is completely asinine. Yep. It's the good opinion. And on that note, I'm going to wrap it up because we have to go to a meeting right now. But it's the good opinion of good people that we should all be listening to. Well, thank you for hanging out for an hour.
Thank you.
Forcing you to do it. If you liked Ryan and you want him to come back on and tell you guys about the time that he was trained by Kevin Spacey, he would love to come back on. Talk about that. That's not a lie. Not a lie.
Nope.
And on that note, I will see you guys next Tuesday, same bat time, same bat channel.
Am I Robin?
Always.
Okay. Bye.
Dismissed.